All right, here we go. Ready?
I was born ready.
So
Not ready. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, no.
Now you're ready?
Now I'm ready. I'm such an asshole. See, you have to. And
you know,
leave this
you're
in.
funny and you're fake, and that's why it's so good to have you here today, because that's everything we're talking about is about being funny and fake.
Really? No, really? Really? No, really? Really?
All right, let me tell you something.
Yeah, tell me
I'm
something.
very excited about this what we're going to talk about today for a number of reasons. One is the subject of our conversation is someone who you and I both revered as,
oh my gosh,
as one of the most brilliant minds, period, stop, one of the most brilliant comedic minds. And George Carlin, to me, what was so amazing about his career not only was what he chose to speak about, what he chose to examine, the ways in which he did it, but I have always found comedy is like of a moment. You know, guys who were funny, their thing was so great 10 years ago, and they're doing the same thing now, and it doesn't work the same way. George Carlin, that career spanned decades, and it was always top of the game, always.
Which is why, if I may say,
Yeah.
when this subject came up, I got angry. I really got angry.
Yeah.
Because I was blessed to know George for a run of time, and I saw how structured his comedy was, how hard he worked on it. And I want to include Kelly's here, his daughter Kelly Collins. I want to bring you into the conversation. But Kelly,
Welcome, by the way, Kelly.
Oh, thank you.
and Kelly,
I was enjoying your
writer,
shtick, by the
performer.
way.
Thank you.
But the reason I got upset and wanted you in right away was because your dad. There's an interview I'm going to put up on the site that I did with George in '96, and you get to hear
How
his brain fires, even just hanging, just in conversation, because it's pretty casual, and where he goes. And what pissed me off about this, so this studio put out its podcast, put out an AI special with your dad, even with all the disclaimers. One of the disclaimers was, to those under 20, I'm the only effing George Carlin. That's number one. That's number one. But number two, George went from the hippy-dippy weatherman, which was a stone weatherman, through his entire career, and he always evolved into something based on the times, based on what he felt. AI doesn't evolve. AI takes a moment and does a joke about something, and most of these weren't even funny. They were like statements. And I thought to myself, this is part of his legacy. This is part of how he's going to be remembered. If somebody listens to it, you can't. It's like unseeing an accident. You can't unhear this.
It's
once
wedged.
you hear it.
It's wedged its way into the legacy.
Yes,
It's part
yes.
of the story.
So
Hopefully not.
If it pissed
Hopefully
me
not.
off, that this has some reference to his life, then it must have pissed Kelly off. So I wanted to get her on right away, because I can't. And it's funny, I was talking to Howie, and I don't think he's going to mind, Howie Mandel, and he said, well, I wouldn't mind if they did something because the legacy lives. And I said, but Howie, this is a guy, I watched him work. He would take a joke and rewrite it and remove it and tell it for 2 years for an HBO special.
It's one thing if you have a vote in it and you say, when I'm dead, go ahead and feed all of my material into some computer that may be around in 15 years that could possibly replicate my genius. If you vote for that, then you vote for that, and that's great. Permission. But my dad didn't get a vote in this. And like you said, this is a man who used his human life, his human experience, his human heart, his human brain to concoct and create and shape and shave and mold in things that blew our minds every decade, like you were saying, Jason. Like, he was always evolving into the next version of himself.
Right.
And the thing was that what he said to us 30, 25, 25 years before he died are still relevant. That's why these people did this, because everyone wants to know what George Carlin's going to say today.
Right,
and I
right.
always say to them, well, if you had been listening, he already said it. Right. The problem is we weren't paying attention. We were going, isn't he clever and smart? Can I have another latte, please? So he warned us. He let us know where it's all going, what's happening with it. So there's this thing about the genius of humans human lives, the thing that happens, how humans take in experiences and use this amazing brain that we have to observe and share and communicate. And the thing about stand-up is that I can't even think of a more, I mean, that's like live theater too, a more human experience of an exchange between a performer and an audience member. You know, every night, whether you're an actor or a comedian, you come out on stage, there's a different energy in the room. There's a different laugh at that joke that sometimes it gets a big one, sometimes it's total silence. It's a listening crowd tonight, it's a laughing crowd. That's the magic of this art form. You know, and the fact that the whole thing is this canned audio experience with this canned audience laughing, it's so horrible.
And frankly, it's not the most astonishing imitation either.
Oh, it's
very limited.
We think it's AI. We think the voice is AI created. Now, I don't know if you know or not, there was a New York Times article 2 days ago. They did interview the representative of Will, saying that the writing was done by the other podcaster, which it reflects.
Well, so except that their podcast thesis is they both fed into AI all of their information.
It's all a lie.
So that the AI would do it.
The whole premise of their podcast, I believe, is
a lie. Okay, I was going to ask you.
I don't know, but this is what we'll do in Discovery.
Because I'm cynical about stuff. The first thing I thought is maybe which was why I was friendly with your dad. What is the cause for doing this? Is it for controversy and they can reveal we want it to be part of the conversation and we agree with you that this shouldn't be done, and this was we wanted to make the noise so people could see the potential damage? Was that it?
Want to put it out there?
Yeah, or are they?
Or is it we want to make a buck?
We want to make a buck.
These are great questions. More shall be revealed, as they say.
I called a constitutional lawyer who got back to me late. Who did you go to legally that gave you the context of saying parody, not parody? Here's what we want.
We're dealing with a person who understands copyright law and rights of publicity law.
Okay.
Those are the two things in which we are suing for.
Well, let me ask you before, because I definitely want to hear about this. I'm so interested in this. You and other members of your family, the estate, whatever, blindsided, no.
Blindsided.
Okay, so when it was out there to us, that's the first time it was out there to you.
100%.
Okay. Did you, and you don't have to answer this if you shouldn't, but was there any compensation to you or the estate?
They still haven't even talked to us.
Right. Okay, so nothing compensated in any way.
Not even a conversation.
Let me ask you this before we get into what they really did. If a living human being, impressionist, that does a great impression of your dad, were to do the exact same thing, would you feel any differently?
No, we would shut him down.
You would shut him down too?
Yeah, we're known for shutting people down. George Carlin, like Frank Zappa's family, we don't let people do a lot of George Carlin
stuff. So there's
stuff.
no Beatlemania for you guys. You know, it's like,
I mean, you know, if it feels like it's integral to my father's own ethical standards and his creative center, then we make a choice and do it.
Right.
But there have been other people, we get a lot of emails from people wanting to do a lot of stuff with my dad's material.
Right.
And it sounds great. You know, like, oh, you want to do this book? That sounds fascinating. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. You know, the documentary took us as long as it did because we kept getting people coming to us and it just didn't feel like the right people, the right gravitas. It just it never clicked. You know, we had a long time ago, a biopic deal at one point, and I saw a spec script and I was just like, this will never happen, this with that particular script, you know. Right. So we're very careful. Look, his stuff's on YouTube. We let it be on YouTube. Sure. We love the fact that the social media happened. That
it lives, yeah.
Not only that, but in 2008, my dad died. By 2009, 10, and 11, I had people on my Facebook page from Iran, Russia, China, people learning about George Carlin. Like, your dad's changed my life. I'm 16 and I'm living in Pakistan. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Right. You know, so that's a beautiful thing. Like, I love that kind of organic sharing of that. But this is a different beast, this thing that happened a few weeks ago.
One of the things that's so, I guess, involves me personally in what you're doing is, for me and for so many actors, writers, artists, storytellers, creators, I am existentially frightened by AI. I don't get it. Our union is starting to make deals.
I've been talking to a lot of your friends the last 2 weeks.
What are we doing,
Yep.
you guys? Why are you enabling this? And they go, well, it's going to happen. It's written in the stars. And I go, it doesn't have to happen. And it may mean changing some of the laws. Right now, there is nothing that says in the law books that you can't take my image and parody me and create something. And so let's talk about what you're doing legally. What is there a law on the books that you're aware of that says they can't do what they did?
Well, there is a law on the books called rights of publicity that those of us in California and New York, they have a very strong legal aspect of that. I don't know what the word is, but that protects people's ability to control their name and likeness. And this was done because Fred Astaire's wife saw Fred Astaire, I think it was dancing with a vacuum cleaner.
Right.
And she sued. And this created this precedent of this law. So, and because both California and New York have a lot of performers and entertainers, it's kind of an entertainer protection, but it protects anybody from controlling their name and likeness. So that's the one thing that we are in the lawsuit that we are using as a as a legal precedent. The other is the copyright issue. This is where it gets very muddy. When we filed the lawsuit, we were assuming, because they had said out loud that they fed a machine all of his specials, or the machine said it. I ate all of these hundreds, whatever it was. Right. So we're like, all right, well, I know that the New York Times is suing OpenAI. I know Sarah Silverman is in another suit right now. I know a couple of her things were thrown out because the derivative content, I'm just learning all this stuff myself. Yeah. The derivative content was so different than her original stuff. The judge was like, well, you can't really make those things click. Whereas with this thing, it's like feed in George Carlin, and then they're calling the derivative art form George Carlin. Right. So it's like, well, this seems like just a step over a little soft little line here. But now that it's not AI created, it's not going to be an AI copyright case, but it is it is some sort of part of our argument for wanting to protect the copyright, even of this content that was created, is what you said a little earlier, which is that, and by the way, they did take the special down as of on Friday or Saturday.
Interesting.
My lawyer texted me and said that the video is down. So, but the thing is, we don't know who downloaded it. We don't know who's going to cut it into a million little pieces. Yeah. And they're not going to get the beginning part that says, oh, this is an AI impression. So people will be introduced to George Carlin through this content, which completely waters down his legacy and his own intellectual property. And then AI in the future may ingest this as a George Carlin content.
Absolutely.
Which will then just meld into all.
You won't know what's what.
Itself.
Exactly.
It's not watermarked or copyright. Yeah, you won't know it's in there. And then all of a sudden you're putting out crap. We were talking about that once the desire for that product is so great that AI is going to take content that exists, and eventually, because it needs more content, it's going to eat itself. It's going to keep doing that.
100%.
So we don't know. That's what bothered me about this. You heard these jokes and you go, people are going to pull these jokes, send them to people, and they go, yeah, it's not him, but and it blends together, and it's something George would never say. His attitude would be smarter, different, whatever. And all of a sudden,
the genius of George Carlin was that you never knew what he was going to say. Right. He was going to literally blow your mind George, as an audience member.
Just so people know, if they don't know, George would come in and do the most amazing, heavy-duty riff about something just so important, and then look at me and go, which you heard, I also never go to a dentist with blood in his hair. I mean, George, you go, and I always laugh at that because it's the juxtaposition of what made him laugh, and also his pacing and the palate cleansing of jokes. It's really, really tough to do. And he took 2 years for an HBO special. He would sit in the house with the cards and move stuff around and take all the time.
And work it out on stage in front of audiences. He'd come out and say, hi, guys, I've got my pad tonight. I'm learning a new bit. Don't worry. We're going to have lots of jokes. We're going to be doing lots of stuff that I know already, but I'm also going to have to practice this, and I can only practice it in front of people because that's what comedy is. You can't practice comedy in front of a mirror.
There is a thing happening now in some venues where a performer who's no longer with us is recreated holographically. And like in the Michael Jackson show in Vegas, they do that at the end, the ABBA touring show.
Yeah.
And you go, sure, because people want to experience that thing again. But that's them. It may be holographic, but it is holograph of something they actually
did. It's their content, and most likely their estate signed the paper and getting paid lots of money for it, which is very different. So that's what I say about it. It's like they get a vote in it. My dad's had no vote in this. And they're putting these. Here's another thing about my dad is there was at the beginning of the internet, whenever that was, I remember doing a website for my dad. It was like 1999, 2000. It was when websites were happening. And the first thing he wanted to put on the front page of the website was how this email meme thing went around. And it was called the something of time. I can't remember what it is right now. And it was this horrible, like hokey little like, oh, the days get longer, but the something gets shorter. You know, it sounds kind of Carlin-esque and kind of like in a lilting kind of a way. And you can feel the juxtaposition of ideas that he loved to do, but it was not his. And at the front of his website, he wrote this nasty note to the people who were spreading this and everything because he hated people putting words in his mouth. And that's why when I woke up to the news that this thing was happening, the roar of mama bear rage inside of me, because it was like, this is the very thing that he could not stand, was people, trying to, pass something off as him. And, this is the part of the performer and the creator and the writer and all of us that, where the healthy ego shows up. This is me saying this, and the thing about AI is, it's almost like, well, what's the point of humans? I'm just going to consume your stuff and turn it into content. And what's the point of humans anymore? What's the point of having an experience or sharing an experience? Because we're just here to be fucking distracted by this bullshit. It's just, it's an existential spiritual crisis.
It's
I really
interesting,
believe
Kelly.
this.
What's really interesting, because it's out there. I mean, every editor's using it. Everybody's using it the way they're using it and justifying that. But what's interesting, Jason and I have been doing this show for about a year. And we had a guy on about deepfakes, and we had a guy on who is
about AI
in Silicon Valley, and it was at that time when they said we're going to pause. All these guys got together.
Yeah, we're going to pause this shit because it's crazy.
What AI is eventually going to do is put gazillions of people out of work. AI can efficiently do a lot of the work that just working people do to survive. And if you take away their ability to earn a living, who's watching the fabulous content or buying the stuff from big business?
But let me play the people writing in right now saying these guys are morons and they don't get it. I get that AI can be very helpful, connecting people with illnesses who would never, ever get to meet.
Well, it already is. I mean, it spell checks for us.
It does a lot, yeah. But
by the way, that has screwed me up 17 ways from Sunday.
Me too, yes, that's true.
Meanwhile, I said all good, and it said ask God is what I sent somebody. But that's okay. And they wanted to do an intervention. They went, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I won't tell you what it corrected. Is 1 o'clock enough? Can you get there on your own?
I'm getting there right now.
George Carlin's daughter, can you get there?
Whoa. That's our next game show. We can sell this. What did this spell check corrected do?
Yeah.
It's like Vanna.
Oh, this is good.
Wait, C-O-C-K. Okay, we got to go to commercial break.
This is good.
But the AI is beneficial in a lot of ways.
Of course.
It's used in amazing ways.
So is technology.
But we got to get our act together. For all those people writing going, you guys don't get it. We got to get our act together on some rules and regulations with this crap.
I love left brain thinkers. They're lovely. They build rockets that go hopefully the right place and all of that, and the cars work and things like that. But, there's this other part of our brain and all the soft skills that go along with being a human, intuition, empathy. Doctors use those things too to care for people. Yeah. And, and it is those soft things. It is the stuff that you can't put your finger on, that you can't build a machine out of yet, that make living life worthwhile.
You bet.
I mean, I've been really contemplating this stuff the last few weeks. And for me, it really comes down to, it's almost like the AI thing is just saying, you know what, it is like the Matrix. We're just going to put you in a pod. We're going to feed you. You're going to be a battery for this thing. And we're just going to make a life up for you. And, because it's like, what's the point of being a human even now?
Play devil's advocate for 1 second, because I've hit a stone wall on this. I can't quite do it.
I'll try to help.
But maybe you can, because you're the daughter of a very profound thinker.
I got a lot of good DNA in me.
Is there conceivable, specifically to the situation of they created a false performance of your father?
Right.
Is there some benefit to society from that? Is there anything that you go, well, I can see why that would, there's a positive to it? Because I have trouble finding it.
Well, let's see. One of the benefits could possibly be, we need smart, funny people to listen to. Okay, well, we've got a lot of those, and we have a lot of recordings of those people too. Okay, so that's not going to be on my list. We need people to dumb down other people's material.
That's going to be a new industry.
You know what it is?
I need a dumb downer.
Maybe, yeah, it's a dumb downer. Or maybe we really need a lot of examples of how to be a hack comic. Then you just put everyone's material, just put all the comics material into these AIs, and it'll just be the hack version of Gary Shandling, the hack version of Robin Williams, the hack version of Joan Rivers. I've been thinking about it, even impressionists lately. Like, remember Rich Little?
Sure.
We're Rich Little generation. It's part of the fun of seeing an impressionist, or even watching the people on SNL and all that kind of stuff, is like watching a human trying to get into the skin of someone else.
Right.
And they'll get, a good impressionist will teach you about how to do an impression. It's just like you need like 1 or 2 or 3 little things that creates the glow of the thing, right? That's an art form. That's and that's interesting. And I know that I'm watching Rich Little doing somebody, right? Yeah. Whereas this thing, it's a replication. Right. It's not an impression.
Has your lawyer heard back from, this is the fascinating part of this, to stay in tune with this, because I got from angry and feeling 1/10 of what you feel, okay? Because he was so original that how do you replicate that? It's impossible. Part of me, however, felt, when I was getting ready to come in the episode, I started smiling because I thought, if this lawsuit works out in any way help to regulate the future of this, then your dad got the last laugh, because he was used somehow to change regulations, because of this.
Let's talk about the FCC versus Pacifica case. I mean, this already happened once in his career accidentally. WBAI played the 7 dirty words you can't say on television, on the radio. And they played it during an educational hour about the effects of First Amendment in speech. It was about language this hour. It was an educational hour on WBAI. And a professional moralist, as my dad likes to call him, was listening on purpose, because he was part of those Christian people that do this kind of stuff, and had his 14-year-old son with him, and then acted like, my 14-year-old son heard a bad word. And of course, it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it changed First Amendment law forever. It was not obscene language. It was now called indecent. And forevermore, when you worked on the radio, I know you had them, there was a little sheet that would tell you what the Carlin words were. They were called the Carlin words, and they were the 7 words. So my dad used to, people say, oh, you were part of the Supreme Court. And my dad said, look, it was an accident of history that I had nothing to do with the case. But he goes, I did get a kick knowing that the Supreme Court justices had to listen or read my material. And the whole album is in the annals of the Supreme Court, which is, it's pretty cool. So this is the thing also, it's like, I think about like, why did they pick my dad? Obviously, I mean, not obviously, I'm not going to speak for them because I'm not allowed to do that anyway, assuming because they revere him, they respect him.
I would imagine.
But really you're going to, but the thing about it for me also is like, you're going to pick one of the most unique comedic voices in the last 50 years and you're going to try to do this? Like, I get it. Like I guess if you do it well and you hit it out of the park, you're kind of an AI hero or whatever they're calling this thing that it is. But I do find it interesting that George Carlin does get to be the tip of the spear.
There you go. That was the only thing that made me feel, as I'm wrapping up the research, I go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
George could end up being the thing again.
Again, he's the one who's pushing the envelope of something, but for him it's creativity.
And that's why I said earlier, I'm suspect and thought maybe they knew that and it was calculated. So they figured this is the guy.
You have a theory that they're anti-AI in the end.
This could be, I don't know. But
either.
It could be, and who better to be the spokesperson?
Well, it's interesting because from what I've gathered, just what people have told me about, I don't listen to the podcast, but they've said like, oh, well, most of their fans know that this third host is not really an AI bot.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, who's speaking it? Who's writing his stuff? Who is it? Because it can't be the two other guys because they are talking live with him. And when I watched the episode where the AI bot announced that he had written and performed this special, if you look at the faces of the two other podcasters, the human podcasters, they look a little terrified. And I was like, either they're really good actors or they are shitting in their pants because they're not sure if this is okay or not. But then knowing that the other guy now wrote it, I'm like, all right, well, maybe they're good actors.
Which is why I think there's much more to the story that will be revealed.
Yes, more will definitely be revealed.
It's not because it started out as pure AI and they fed in their stuff and everything on the show's AI. Now you're hearing it's not. Then Howie told me this morning, he knows the one guy, Will Sasso, and said, yeah, I think it was written. So it's morphing into something else.
Yeah, they already said to the New York Times that it was written by the other guy. I think his name's Chad.
It'd be interesting, and maybe we will follow up and do that because I've met Will very briefly. He seemed like a terrific guy, and he's a good actor and a funny man. And I wonder, I'd be surprised if he thought he was doing something harmful or immoral. I wonder why. I really do wonder why they took this on and chose to do this, because they had to know it would be controversial. They had to know it could be potentially be a legal problem for them. And I have to assume that they revered your dad. I can't imagine being a comic who wouldn't revere him. So it's part of why the whole technology scares me, because I think people of good character and good intent can stumble into some really horrible stuff.
Well, we're talking about unintended consequences here, 100%. And, I think about, remember in 2008 when Facebook came and we were all like, oh, wow. Oh, I get to see my old high school sweetheart or whatever it is. Oh, I didn't realize that my content was the product, like that my data was the thing they're going to make. Like I did, like it was like, it's so like, oh no, on the surface everything's fine, and then underneath it's like all the wiring and all the stuff and all the money.
You don't get to see.
You don't get to see the real intention in what they're doing, and I don't think also that they even really understood what they had unleashed. I mean, clearly not. I mean, these people, we're humans. We don't know what the fuck we're doing ever. And we're gonna, and this is where
you are your father's daughter.
This is when the arrogance comes in for me. It's like, guys, just because you can do something does not mean you should. Right.
And before we go, we got to wrap up. But I also wonder, and would love to follow up with you, if there's a generational difference, because certain age, like a cutoff, and I don't know what it is, 40, 50 plus, are like, oh my God, this is horrible. But we're the old geezers who wanted to. And if the younger generation, they grew up with this. This is part of their existence. Is like, yeah, I'm not that upset by it.
I think if you're a real George Carlin fan, and I'd say about 99.9% of the people that have been reaching out to me, whether it's on social media or not, are outraged by this and disgusted by it. And I think if you're a real George Carlin fan, you know that he would have not been the 2024 version of him would not be standing on a stage doing a commercial for AI, which is, I understand, part of this concert. He goes on to like the benefits and the greatness of AI or whatever. And I'm like, really? Like, what? You know, my dad did a piece called Modern Man. You may be familiar with it.
Mm-hmm, sure.
If you really listen to it, he's not like saying this is great. He's saying this is what we've been turned into.
You bet.
Yeah. Again, he told us everything we needed to know.
Yeah.
Just listen, people.
Yeah. And, you know, in saying to that younger generation who goes, yeah, I don't see the problem. I'm so frightened for the younger generations because I know a few people in academia, and one of them said to me recently, well, at our university, the students cannot use AI to write a paper, but we let them use it to outline. And I go, why? That's one of the most critical parts,
thinking,
right?
Yes,
about how to organize my thoughts.
Yes.
How am I going to present this? What about? I go, why would you take this critical part of learning and thinking and being human and expressing how you see the world? Why would you take it? Even give them the opportunity to think that that's not an important part of their.
Because you were born with it, you're used to it. You use it to cut corners. You use it to help write. You use it for a lot of beneficial stuff. You feel because you grew up with it. I mean, it's a completely different environment when you're born into something, and it's what you know, and everyone's using it for some reason to help.
All I know is that every time-saving device that we've ever created as humans has led to basically where we are now, which is the extinction of the biosphere.
Jason has a theory. He's got one line.
All of technology. I think all of technology comes down to this. I don't want to do it.
No. Why don't you do it? You do it.
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. You do it.
I don't want to do it.
That's it. That's the whole headline.
Everything in technology.
So we're basically a bunch of 2-year-olds.
Yeah. Yes. I don't want to do it. You do it. You do it.
I don't want to write the paper. You write the paper. I don't want to make the food. You make the food.
I don't want to do the diagnosis. You do it.
I don't want to spend the 30,000 hours becoming a stand-up comedian.
I don't want to do it.
I don't want to drive the car. Let the drive car. You do it. You do it.
And not only do I not want to spend the 30,000 hours, I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to put it in the air and make it free.
So my question then is to the next generation. Seriously, if we're going to save all this time because you don't want to do any of this stuff, great. What the fuck are you going to do?
Exactly.
We'll figure something out.
What's left?
We'll figure something out.
Well, that's exactly right. I first of all, I love that you're pursuing. Honestly, thank you for pursuing this. I wish you the best, and I am hopeful and fascinating about where this goes, and you know, I hope we can follow up and find out.
Yeah.
But I know you're not your dad, and I'm sure my kids, the last thing they want to talk about is me. But I would be remiss to not say you are the daughter of one of the most special people that have graced my lifetime. I don't think of myself as a comedian, you know, but it was clear to me from the day I put the first needle on the first George Carlin album, I went, this guy is different.
Yeah.
Well, everybody knew that.
Learn. I can learn as an actor from this man. I can learn as a writer from this man. I can learn as a thinker from this man. I can learn as a feeling human being from this man. And everything about him was a delight to me. And what a treat you must have had to have all that time.
It was fun.
You know?
Yeah, or not.
I mean, you watched the documentary. It was treacherous at other times too. But
but to be that mind is challenging, and it's difficult and frustrating and scary. And you have to always deliver another special that was as good. You just did Gold. Now I got to do it again. Yeah. I do it again, and it's got to be as meaningful. So that's part of it. You're sitting in that den.
But he loved that.
Yes, of course. But with 8,000 cards, sitting there writing and writing and writing.
Yeah.
So he was one of the funniest angry guys I've ever met in my entire life.
And one of the sweetest, kindest angry guy on stage.
So,
but angry because he had a broken heart.
Yep. For humanity and for
he loved humanity, and that's what he
couldn't believe it.
That's the gift he gave me. Is he gave me the gift of making sure that we all stay human
and never go to a dentist with blood in his hair.
Never.
Thank you for coming in.
No, really.
Really.